Rick, we had a big boy press conference last night is what the press dubbed it. I wanted to play a bite right off the bat because this is really one of the main takeaways was when President Biden announced who his vice presidential running mate is, I guess. Let's go ahead and play bite 2.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
So, Rick, we had gaffes. We had lapses last night. The left has said, look, he didn't do that bad. And to his credit, he, for the most part, stayed on answer. It was fairly dull, which was probably good for him at this point. But what was your takeaway, aside from the gaffes, the two major ones? We'll play the other one in a minute because they were probably the worst gaffes he could make at this point. But what was your initial take on the substance or lack thereof of his press conference last night?
Well, look, we keep having this debate about the messenger, and not a lot of people are talking about the message. I mean, we've got wars and inflation and an open border and chaos. But we just keep talking about the messenger. My attitude is that Joe Biden was this way for the past several years, and Democrats voted for him. We had an election. They had an election. And it was clear that all states, Democrats in all the states, wanted Joe Biden. So Joe Biden is their nominee. And, he's just going to have to figure out a way to build back better. My attitude is that he's completely the legitimate nominee, and this group of elites in D.C. that are trying to undermine our democracy and come up with a new slate of candidates, I think is terrible. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. Elections have consequences. We have to face the choices that we make, the consequences of our choices. And they chose Joe Biden, so that's their candidate. They got to go with them all the way to November. Otherwise, you're undermining democracy, right? Democracy, blah, blah, blah.
That's the biggest problem here. And the Democrat Party is never afraid of hypocrisy when it serves their own good. And as you've heard throughout this entire election, through the primaries, that the greatest threat to democracy is President Trump. And what do the Democrats do to try to preserve that democracy? They run a primary, and President Biden was, in theory, opposed, not really by a serious candidate for opposing a sitting president, but there were votes cast, and he did win those votes. And now they have picked their party's leader. And yet they're rushing to try to figure out how to fix their problem of democracy. And we had Tulsi Gabbard on the show yesterday, who had the insight of being a former vice chair of the DNC a lifetime ago. But we asked that question to her directly. Are they willing to just throw out their rules in order to get what they see as their greatest outcome? And she said affirmatively, yes, they will do whatever they think it takes the Democrat elites to win. And doesn't that just show you that they don't care about the voice of the people and never have?
Well, I'm shocked at how many reporters in newsrooms I'm seeing that are literally just calling for an undermining of democracy. They're just outright wanting Joe Biden replaced. They're not even talking about the election that every state had to pick Joe Biden. I've never seen reporters so gleeful in undermining democracy. They don't even mention it, Will. They don't even say anything about the process other than it's clear Joe Biden is going to lose, so we should replace him. And I find it incredibly troubling.
And I did want to play this other bite because, once again, call them gaffes, call them lapses for a moment while on stage. But this one, I feel like, when the Democrats have put so much effort and time and American resources into Ukraine, to have this happen on stage with the president of Ukraine standing right next to him has got to be the peak embarrassment moment for Jake Sullivan and Anthony Blinken. Let's go ahead and play bite one and get Rick's reaction.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway.
At least he caught himself there at the end, unlike with his misstatement of who was his vice president. But as someone who has worked for presidents in high-level roles, what do you think the Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken feelings were as they were sitting there in that room watching that unfold?
Well, I think for 3 years, all of the senior staff and cabinet have been holding their breath whenever Joe Biden goes to a microphone. They've known this. We've seen clips on Air Force One, for instance, where you have Anthony Blinken really nervous about what Joe Biden is saying in front of the press. Now we see Anthony Blinken in this moment shut his eyes and just completely get embarrassed. There needs to be a full investigation. And that investigation needs to reveal who knew that the president of the United States was sick and didn't tell us.
Rick, we have the Republican National Convention kicking off Monday in Milwaukee. I know that you'll be there. You'll be participating in a panel with Jordan on lawfare, which I'm very excited to hear how that goes. But we see a time where the Republicans are probably hoping maybe we don't want to have a convention because the news cycle's so great right now. But what are your thoughts on heading into the RNC next week?
Yeah, look, we're going next week. The Republicans, it's I think bad timing because the Democrats are not coming right after us. There's 2-week break for the Olympics. So we go, then 2 weeks of the Olympics, and then the Democrats go. I think that's giving them a little bit of an advantage. They're going to be able to kind of control the messaging, slow down what's happening. I do think it's bad for them in one aspect is that if they want to replace Joe Biden, they need momentum. They need more people to come out. And what's about to happen is Joe Biden's going to get a 3-week vacation, Republicans, and then the Olympics, and then he comes back. So this could be terrible timing for the Democrats.
Rick, thank you so much for joining us as always. I look forward to hearing how the lawfare panel that's with Jordan and our attorney Ben Cisney that'll be taking place, I believe, on Tuesday at the RNC. So looking forward to that. And I know our team will be up there capturing that, and we'll probably play some clips from it here on the broadcast. But it's a very important issue, especially to be showcasing that and talking about that while at the RNC. So safe travels, Rick, and we will talk to you soon. But folks, we are in the middle of our Life and Liberty drive this month of July. And this pivotal moment in history, it is more important than ever that the ACLJ push forward and fight to defend life and liberty. And that's the reason we've launched our Life and Liberty Drive. And your gifts are doubled, dollar for dollar, during this drive. Biden defiantly claims he will remain president. And we know what he means. More government corruption, more targeting of political rivals, and more betrayal of Israel. But we are fighting back. Today, we have already filed now, officially filed, an amicus brief in the disqualification appeal of Fani Willis to stop her prosecution of President Trump in the Georgia court case there. We are also appearing in court today to defend a teacher who was told she couldn't pray anywhere students might see her. That's in court in Houston, Texas. And I got to update also that our attorneys are now looking to prepare for trial in that case in early 2025. So we have time to prepare, but that we will be moving forward in that case, protecting that teacher whose rights were violated by being told she could not be praying. She could not be seen praying. She could not pray anywhere that a student could see her. And we've also just submitted a major filing to defend Israel at the ICC. And we have filed a FOIA request, a FOIA lawsuit, rather, over Biden withholding aid from Israel. Thank you for your support. Because of your support, we can continue these battles. We fight every day. As I mentioned earlier, when we see the egregious slide that was on anti-terrorism out of Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg in North Carolina, we didn't just read about it and come on here and talk about it. We immediately took action. We mobilized our attorneys to start the FOIA request process, and our government affairs team immediately was talking with members of Congress to figure out how we could partner with them to push back on this. But it's only because of you we have these resources to come to you every single day, every weekday on this broadcast to explain these issues, but also to have the teams of attorneys and government affairs experts that are able to get to work right away. We do that because of ACLJ donors, and right now is a great time to donate to keep us fighting the never-ending attacks on our freedoms. Your gifts are double during our Life and Liberty Drive. Go to aclj.org and donate today.